Welcome. Today we are going to talk about an important topic related to stress. You would have attended quite a lot of programs. There are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of motivation speakers, there are a lot of people on the internet who try to help you how to deal with the stress. Am I right? You need to do some kind of exercise, you need to have some kind of meditation, some kind of gym activities, some kind of personal breathing exercise, and maybe spending time with nature or the family or watching a movie. There are so many ways, even there are music therapies available. And just imagine this way that there are 8 billion population in the world and everyone has to do this. Do we have space for 8 billion population to walk on the roads? Or do we have enough treadmills available, and do we have that house? Can we afford to do that? So if you extend this logic, yeah, it all works at some point in time. You need to think through that what is causing this stress. So I'm not demeaning any of those things, but at the same time, you need to remember this very important aspect that are you the source of stress for yourself and for people around you at home or office or in your locality or community, society? Are you the kind of person creating the stress? So nobody is talking about how you should not be the source of the stress for yourself or your own self or for others. So that is what we are going to talk about today briefly. We all know that Mahabharata happened, and there are a lot of people on either side of the warring parties facing each other and trying to kill, and Lord Krishna or Bhagavan Krishna was there to support Arjuna, and who was ready to sting the arrows at his enemies. Who are his enemies? They are all bloodlines, his close relatives, seniors, and people who are in the cabinet or the ministers of that time. All along, Arjuna had fought so many wars, so many maneuvers, or warring maneuvers rather, and there was not a single instance that Arjuna had any stress. In the same way, there are so many warring parties, there are so many warriors, so many soldiers, so many commanders. None of them had stress. When you had stress, obviously you would have noticed that your tongue goes dry, your mouth gets dried, and your words won't come out so freely, and you start shivering or feeling kind of nervous, and something will happen in your head. So all along, in any of those wars or in any of those battles, none of the people had any kind of stress. But on that day or on that occasion of the war, where Arjuna had to face his bloodline relatives, and he was supposed to kill all those. That's where Bhagavad Gita was born. And the point here was, what was the trigger that caused Arjuna to have the stress, and which he didn't have that before in any of those wars or interactions, military interactions, or any others in the warring section. They never had the stress. The very simple reason is that he had to face a dilemma that whether to kill those people who are his relatives who are sitting on the opposite side, or he had to uphold an ethical or dharmic way, which is the main force behind his lifeline. That was the decision point, and decision point per se was not an issue. The decision point was very much there in front of Arjuna, and he knows that. The problem was with the confusion whether to take this route or that route, whether to kill or not to kill, whether to uphold dharma or ethics or not to uphold dharma or ethics. That confusion surrounded him, that caused him the anxiety or the fear, and that's where the stress was born. And Krishna had to come and give the Gita to tell him that this is the way he had to go. Basically, the point here was, at that moment, Arjuna did not have the required knowledge, or he was ignorant of the fact that whether he had to abandon his bloodline or defend dharma or ethics. We discussed about abandoning and defending in some other videos in the earlier. So that was the confusion, that was the trigger point for the confusion. That trigger point was nothing but ignorance, and ignorance might be temporary, might be maybe for a longer period of time, and probably he got blinded by certain emotions, so the truth was not out into his mind. So Bhagavan Krishna had to tell him that this is how things have to be. So that clarity, once he got that clarity, and then things are rather on track, and he went on to become the winner of the war. Okay, now let's come back to this mainstream of stress. You may be employed at an office, or you may be working in an organization, or you may be at home, being an accountable person. So the point here is that whatever is your responsibility, if you have to, for example, in an office, if you are at a level, you would have been hired for an interview against a job description or a JD. So that JD will obviously explicitly state that what are your responsibilities, what is your role, and what you need to do, and what are the metrics, how you will be measured. All that is fine. But the JD from top to bottom will have a flow, whether it is explicit or implicit. That's up to the respective management, for example. But if you understand correctly, the flow happens in that way, and at every level, when you are accountable for something, obviously the accountability includes that you are likely to face certain kind of issues, and for that issues you are accountable, and you are not supposed to be passing on that kind of a stress to your fellow team members or down the line in the flow. That is not explicit, but that is what it means. So as a responsible person, or as an accountable person, what you need to do is that you need to understand, you need to ask at the time of joining, for example, what is the stated accountability and what are the implicit accountability. Obviously the implicit one, or rather one of the implicit accountabilities would be that you will be facing these kind of issues or at certain points, and those points are the trigger points for stress, because certain things may not happen correctly. You are expecting something, and in that dependency cycle it won't happen, or sometimes it is likely that it won't happen. So in that case, how do you manage? So, as a manager or as a responsible person in any capacity, in, you need to understand what are the sources of stress, and you need to have a contingency that how do you avoid those points. That means you need to be knowledgeable enough in terms of how certain things work at a responsibility level, and then appropriately, okay, if these things happen, okay, these are the sources of stress and how do we overcome that. In the same way, at a personal level, you may have to interact with so many people at family, friends, and at society, and not all the time everything will go fine. So expectations will differ. So in that case, you need to be very clear that what is the, or rather, what would be the point of stress, and for those points, you need to be mentally prepared, and you can plan it in such a way that you are knowledgeable about those stress points, and see to that you clear them, or you be clear to yourself, so that those points don't become a stress points. That is the message. So every situation might trigger a stress. So you need to understand what are the data points, what are the situations, what are the information, what are the sources that could translate this into a stress point. The moment it becomes a stress point, obviously that means you are ignorant of certain facts. Either you don't want to do it, or you are totally ignorant of the fact. If you don't want to do it, then it beats the purpose of you being there at that place for which you are hired for, or at a place you are in at your family. So you need to find out what are you trying to abandon, what are you trying to defend. And once you are clear of that fact, and see to that point never becomes a stress point. Imagine this way, there are so many interactions you will be doing it in a day, and never you will face it with the nature. For example, like you won't have a problem with sunlight, you won't have a problem with rain. There may be disturbances, there may be inconveniences, but there is no source of stress point from any of those external factors. Mostly or highly likely that all the stress points are created by humans. It's all man-made, and either it is deliberate or is out of ignorance, or somebody wants to try tease. So that causes the stress point for others. So you need to be clear that you don't become a stress point, and you are not the source of the stress point for yourself and for others. Another scenario is that suppose the company was not able to pay you salary on time. So domestically you will have quite a lot of pressure because of lack of finance at home. And that activity, that whatever that happens at home, which is completely independent of what you do at work, and vice versa. What you do at work is completely isolated from what you do at home. If you are trying to mix up these two, like what you do at home and you are carrying it to the office, or whatever you are doing at office, you are bringing it back to home, then need not be all times, rather at many times, or at least sometimes, that will create a kind of stress, because you are not able to balance these two activities. The reason is, it is not that you are not able to balance it. You are not able to balance it because of certain kind of ignorance, or ignorance of the fact that which one to abandon and which one to defend. And there is a time element which we have discussed in the other videos as well. So the time element, the time runs, right? Whether you count or not, the time runs. So tomorrow morning you have to go to office. Whether you sleep or not doesn't matter. So you have to go to office. Okay, you have to have your breakfast, you have to have your lunch, you have to have your dinner. Okay, so the time runs, and so you need to manage all these things. Even in the war, what we discussed in Mahabharata, the time runs. So Arjuna has to defeat his enemies on time. He didn't rather have as many days as he wanted to kill enemies. So he had to complete certain things on time within a day, within 18 days. So the point here is that when you are crossing boundaries or from one system to another system, you need to understand what are the trigger points in that system that could interface with others. See to that you are not the carrier of that to from office to family or family to office. So further proceeding on that, what will happen is maybe you would have known about chaos theory. Some things happen first, unconnectedly something else happens. Like that, it keeps on going, and finally, in the entire scheme of things, you will never ever even know which caused what problem, and why are you suffering, why are you there, and why are you facing all these difficulties, and you may not have a fix for that until you come out of that totally, come out of that system altogether. And maybe the situation may not even allow you to come out. You may be stuck in an organization for whatever reason, and you may not be in a position to even come out. So, and you won't even know why are you there or why you are not there. So this chaos theory will start happen once you pass on that stress point to yourself or to somebody. The message here today is that understand the work and understand what is the stress point, and see to that you have the complete knowledge about it, and openly you admit that you have the knowledge and you are trying to defend what is the right way to do that and abandon anything else, and automatically you will take the you will rather know the point, and even you won't take the stress. You would have probably killed the stress at the very first place itself before the stress emerges, and you don't pass that. In the worst case, if it has to be faced, you have to take that stress because of that. And Krishna was only telling Arjuna, and Arjuna didn't get another 500 people to overcome that stress. He had to face that. He had to kill the opponents. So have the courage, have the leadership skills that way. That's the true leadership skills. Not how do you manage the team, how do you see the problem, and how do you solve the problem. I won't accept those things as leadership skills. So you need to understand what the stress points are, and if you have to encounter that, you take it on your shoulders, but don't take it on your heart and mind. See to that you resolve it, and of course you do your gym and all that, and so that it doesn't get into you. So, and don't pass it on to others. And the message here is very clear that you don't be the source of the stress for others and for yourself. Thank you for watching. This is Gokul. Cheers.